Hello, everybody. It's great to see you again. This is Stephen Willeford with the BareFoot Defender. We're going to try something new and different this time. I'm moving up into the computer age and going to do a Zoom. And our guest today, I am very honored to have Colonel Allen West, another gubernatorial candidate. And man, what a great candidate he is. Let me introduce him and ask you the first question, I guess, is why do you think you would be better than the current Greg Abbott as governor?
Well, it's good to be with you, Stephen, my friend. It was great being with you this past weekend over in Bernie for the Purple Heart celebration. This is not about me running against Governor Abbott. It's about running for Texas. And one of the most critical things I see happening right now is that we need to be able to defend our sovereignty as a state, as a sovereign state, which has a 1,254-mile border. And I don't see that happening. As a matter of fact, we just saw this past weekend, early in the morning, about 1 a.m. Saturday, that cartel members fired 20 shots across the Rio Grande River into Texas in the El Paso sector, targeting a Border Patrol agent. And I think that it is about time that we get serious about this transnational narco-criminal terrorist organization. And we've got to have a full deployment of our state National Guard to be down there as a deterrent force. We're watching the undermining of the sovereignty of Texas. We're watching our national security being threatened. We see what is happening with our health care and the scare that we have now with this new spike in COVID because we're not testing people at the border. We're not giving them vaccines. I think also we can do something better with our property taxes that we have right now. Texas is not in a good fiscal situation. We are $97 billion in debt because we're not funding our pension plans and our state health plans for our government employees and retirees. So that's something else we need to do. And we got to protect our children here in the state of Texas. I think it's very sad that we have child chemical and physical castration that is going on in the state of Texas, but yet we have a governor who's not taking a stance on that. And we have Republicans in our state house and also our state Senate that did not support two pieces of legislation which would have ended that abhorrent immoral practice. So those are just some of the things that I think that I could do a little bit better. And I'm looking forward to talking about those things. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about the Second Amendment too.
Well, thank you very much. You already touched on a lot of my questions and stuff. First, I am first and foremost pro-life 110%. And I know we recently got the heartbeat bill passed, but I know there's some other legislation that would have even stiffened it up further. And I know that was part of the Republican priorities that you helped enact and stuff. What else can be done?
Well, that was one of the things we tried to push hard for when I was chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, was to end the practice of murdering unborn children in Texas, period. A lot of people are celebrating the fact that we got this heartbeat bill passed, but you have to also understand that the heartbeat bill, there is no criminal penalty if you are a doctor that performs an abortion procedure on a baby in the womb after the heartbeat has been detected. What has to happen if someone like yourself, Stephen, or your wife were to hear about this happening, then you would have to hire a lawyer. You would have to bring forth a civil case. I think that this should be brought forth as a criminal case if you have someone that has gone forth and murdered an unborn child after the heartbeat was detected. Now, I will tell you the good news story is that when you have cities like Lubbock, Texas, Lubbock is now the largest sanctuary city for life in the United States of America. They voted that in. They took the necessary measures to get it, get the petitions, get the signatures, and it got on the ballot for their May the 1st municipal level elections. And by double digits, they were able to get that passed. And I think we have about 30 or 31 cities in the state of Texas that have become sanctuary cities for life, the most recent being Eastland, Texas. So we're starting to see that happen. But I would like to see us as a state take a stance against that, take a stance against ending that child gender modification procedures as well.
Yeah, and see, that's another big thing is the gender modification thing. There is no way that a child 7, 8, 10, 12, even 15, 16 years old should be able to, their parents justify that they're a different gender. and to physically castrate or remove healthy organs and stuff, that child is not even in puberty yet. How can they make that decision for that child? And that didn't get passed.
Well, it did get passed. As a matter of fact, two pieces of legislation, one in the Texas State House and Texas State Senate, were defeated. Didn't even see the light of day, and that's Republicans that did that. And so the American Psychiatric Association has already said that gender dysphoria, this belief that you're a different gender than what you were born, is a mental condition. And they have also declared that this chemical, puberty blockers, hormonal therapies, and the physical castration, that's child abuse. So I find it really weird that Governor Abbott, the governor of Texas, would write a letter to the Texas Department of Family and Child Protective Services and ask them how they think about the issue and do they think that it really is child abuse. So it's time that we have leadership in Texas that can come out and say with definitive action and make a decision to say that it is child abuse. And we don't want to see it happening to children in the state of Texas. If you're an adult and if you want to make that decision for yourself, that's fine. But we're going to protect Texas children if I become the next governor of Texas.
Thank you very much. I agree with that 100%. What is your plan? Do you have a plan for property taxes? Because as a property owner myself, of course, my taxes didn't go up because of my farm exemption. They did try to do away with my farm exemption. But my property values went up this year alone from $700,000 to $1.5 million in 1 year's time. How can they just make that random decision? And what can be done about, are you talking about lowering property taxes, or are you talking about, as Don Huffine is talking about, trying to get rid of them altogether?
Well, first and foremost, you have to understand that it's quite disturbing that we have a system of taxation here in Texas that's based upon the theories, the principles, and the ideologies of Karl Marx. If you read the Communist Manifesto, you can see that two of his planks, one was a progressive tax system, meaning that the more that you earned, the more that you made, the higher your taxes would be. And then the second one was the elimination of private property. And so we see those two things combined when we have property taxes here in the state of Texas. So what happens is that you have these appraisal districts that go around and they do the appraisal on your property. Why? Because they have to generate the revenue to quote unquote make sure that they're covering for the school districts. And so it's kind of a self-licking ice cream cone, if I can put it that way. So I think that we do need to eliminate this property tax system that we have. I think that we can start looking at and implement, and I'd love to sit down with some economists and give them this task and develop that plan. I hear you again.
Okay.
So I will go back and again, I'll say the consumption-based tax, which is the tax on business. This is also called a fair tax. One of the things that we can look at doing, if we could eliminate some of the redundant government agencies and programs that we have up in Austin, Texas, we can use some of those savings, some of those surplus monies that we say we have $7 billion of surplus, and we can put it toward the maintenance and operations of our school districts, and we can pay that down so that we can have a property tax relief. But I think without a doubt, we got to move away from having property tax as a means by which we raise revenues here in the state of Texas.
And this is especially one for me that I really think about, because I homeschooled our children, and I paid for all of their curriculum and stuff, and yet still paid my property taxes to pay for everybody else's kids' education, and that's okay. I'm okay with paying for other people's education, but school choice should be something too. And the poor districts and things, I personally believe that school choice should be a matter of choice. And
you're absolutely right.
Maybe those funds should be given, not just given cash, but so they can move them to a different higher education, better education for schools and stuff. Schools should be a choice.
You're right, and that was one of the legislative priorities that we had as Republican Party of Texas when I was the chairman. But unfortunately, once again, we saw that defeated by the people there in Austin, Texas. Why? because we also have this thing called taxpayer-funded lobbying. And therefore, you have a lot of these independent school districts that go and use taxpayer funds to hire these, gunslingers down there in Austin, Texas, to lobby against the interests of the constituents there in the respective jurisdictions. And so as long as you have taxpayer-funded lobbying, you're going to have people that are out there and they're voting down school choice because the lobbyists are pushing against that. School choice is an important, critical civil rights issue. I'm a product of school choice. I grew up in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia. My parents made the decision not to send me to the two public schools there. They sent me to a small Black Catholic school called Our Lady of Lourdes. And that, set me on the path that I'm on today because the equality of opportunity that we can enjoy here in America, it begins with a good quality education. And it is the parents' choice to make that. And as well, we see even more usurpation and taking away of parents' rights and authorities when now, people say you must put your child in a mask. You must get your child vaccinated. And so what we're seeing happening is that parents are losing more of their rights and abilities to decide what's best for their children. When you have the head of the teachers union, Randy Weingarten, that says that they're going to use all of their power and lawyers and everything to fight parents so that they can teach critical race theory or cultural Marxism to children K through 12. So there's a battle for the hearts and minds of our children. And that goes right along with the battle to make sure that we can keep our children alive, protect them from the womb into birth, and make sure that we protect them in their body parts. And so we don't have this chemical and physical castration. So that's one of the big things. We got to protect Texas children.
Absolutely. And I agree with you right along with what they're teaching them from drag queen reading.
Story hour, drag queen story hour.
Yeah, drag queen story hour. Oh my goodness, not my kids. And critical race theory. Of course, Texas has rejected the critical race theory, but how far?
Not completely. And that's one of the things that we've got to get accomplished in this special session is to make sure they don't circumvent it and try to, put it in some other type of curriculum or some other type of discipline. So not through history, not through civics, not any way, shape, form, fashion should cultural Marxism be being taught in Texas schools.
Well, now I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk about, you talked about implementing the National Guard and stuff at the border. And so I've been in contact with some people down at the border, and they're saying that our government is giving lip service to stopping everything, and yet they're loading buses of illegal immigrant children and moving them northward to who knows where.
Yeah,
they're just moving out, and nobody really knows where they're going.
Even what we see happening is something I would never thought. I served 22 years in the military. My dad served in the military in World War II. My older brother, Vietnam. My nephew is serving right now. He's a lieutenant colonel in the Army. I deployed to protect other people's boundaries and borders and make sure that they had a sovereign nation and repelled invasions for them. But yet we see that happening here in the United States of America. And Texas is the #1 state for human and sex trafficking in the United States of America. But yet we have a federal government. We even have a state government that, like you said, are paying lip service. Of course, Joe Biden's not doing anything. Kamala Harris not doing anything. But Governor Abbott is paying lip service to this. He's talking about building a wall when it's actually a chain link fence. He's talking about arresting illegals, but that's for, trespassing. And at the most, that's going to get them, I don't know, a few weeks in jail, and then they'll be released. We are aiding and abetting drug trafficking, sex trafficking, and human trafficking here in the state of Texas. And they're being dispersed all over the United States of America, like you say. If you get out on I-35, you will see so many tour buses that are going up and down I-35. Those aren't tourists. Those are illegal immigrants that are being, picked up, dispersed out through the United States of America. Oh, by the way, with $1,400 per illegal immigrant of taxpayer funds, something that you can't do, Stephen, if you cross the border and go down into Mexico. Nobody's going to give you 1,400 pesos, but that's what we're doing. And so I find it unconscionable that we do not have a full mobilization of our National Guard. I find it unbelievable that we had 20 rounds fired across the Rio Grande River that's an international boundary into the state of Texas, targeting a Border Patrol agent, you've heard crickets. You've heard no one talking about it. Stephen, that's an act of war.
That is.
Yeah. And so what are we going to do? I mean, all we're doing is emboldening these cartels to be even more brazen. And that's why we got to designate them as a, transnational narco-criminal terrorist organization and go after them. Go after their funds, go after their resources, seize their assets, use the assets that we seize, and we can build up our own Texas Border Patrol. Because right now, the Customs and Border Patrol and the ICE are being told not to do anything.
So I have a friend down there at the border, and he's had to move his whole family inland, quite a bit, away from the border because they've taken over his ranch. And he's got with law enforcement, said, can't you do something about this? And they said, absolutely not. They're overwhelmed and they can't focus just on his ranch, even though they came in and they trashed his home and all his hunting cabins that were associated with his hunting ranch. And so his commerce is gone, Yes. And, the drug cartels have just taken it over. So that's a situation that I guess probably the hottest priority to Texans right now is taking back Texas from illegal immigrants and things, and Joe Biden and his administration. I'm not sure that Joe Biden knows how to select his socks in the morning.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the decision is being made for him, except for the type of ice cream that he likes.
Oh, I'm sure he still has a preference on that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then I want to move on to a question that's near and dear to me because I went down there and I spoke to the Senate and I spoke to the House on gun rights. I know you are a gun advocate, and I really wish you could have come shooting with me, but we'll make that happen some other time. But so in our state, constitutional carry passed, and I know you asked me to speak on the Capitol grounds about that. So I know that was a great one. And I think the grassroots rising pressured out and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick into that. I'm not sure that they were wholeheartedly on board, but the grassroots, and thank Texas grassroots for that.
Yeah, and Rachel Malone, Gun Owners of America, you're right. The governor and the lieutenant governor going into this session, they were not for constitutional carry. As a matter of fact, if you remember, after it passed in the House, the lieutenant governor, Dan Patrick, said, we're not going to bring it up in the Senate. We don't have enough votes for it. And you saw people come out and the voices were heard and they got that passed. So that victory belongs to the people. That victory belongs to the Texas grassroots. Second Amendment advocates.
I believe that 100%. In fact, I think you'll probably remember a phone call to you when all that was going on from me.
Oh, yeah.
Again, I was down there at the Capitol fighting that real hard, and I'm glad that passed. And it could have been better. There's some things that were put on there by Dan Patrick that I think that could have been better. There's some people that can legally buy a gun and can't carry it for 5 years. There's some restrictions in with that. But let's just talk about that for a victory, though, so we can move forward with. But it also passed something, and frankly, I can't believe it passed. And I was really pushing for it hard. And when you asked me to speak about constitutional carry, I also brought up the Second Amendment sanctuary state at the time at that same speech. And I pushed real hard for that. And I was leery and didn't know whether that would happen or not. And then on top of it, we got the Suppressor Freedom Act. And that blew me away too. And most of my friends say, oh, well, those are just bogus laws. They don't make any difference because you can't stop the ATF from doing what the ATF or the FBI is going to do. And test case, I think in Kansas State, where they did pass a law to legalized suppressors in Kansas State, and the guy that started producing them ended up getting arrested and charged with federal crimes and felonies and stuff. And the state of Kansas didn't stand behind him. And when it was all fought out and stuff, he ended up with felonies on his record, and now he can never own a gun again. And so I want to know, if you're elected governor, what you can do as power of the governor of the state of Texas. And I know Ken Paxton has already sent out a warning to the ATF, and the ATF has already postured back and said that they will charge anybody and stuff. What is the governor's office can be done to, I guess, shore up and protect the citizens of Texas?
Well, first and foremost, let people know that Texas is a sovereign state. And when you talk about the Second Amendment, it's very clear. It's the right for people to keep and bear arms that shall not be infringed. And what you're talking about with that suppressor law, if people are producing and manufacturing those suppressors stamped made in Texas, and they're only being sold inside the state of Texas, not going outside the state of Texas, then by the Commerce Clause, the federal government does not have any jurisdiction to come down and, bring a law against or bring charges against anyone, because the Commerce Clause talks about, regulating commerce between a state and other nations, between a state and other states, or between a state and the Indian nations. So as long as those are being sold within the state of Texas, and again, not being sold to the Indian nations, if we have reservations here, then they don't have any jurisdiction. And of course, I will go to the Supremacy Clause, which says that the federal government is supreme over the states as long as they are taking actions or passing laws that are pursuant thereof to the Constitution. If you're coming down and infringing upon people, infringing upon and violating the Commerce Clause, you're not doing things that are pursuant thereof to the Constitution. And again, the 10th Amendment, which said all of those powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states and to the people. So I would be very clear in asserting that no federal official will have the right or the authority to be able to bring charges against a Texas citizen who is following the Texas state law that was passed by the Texas legislature, because you're trying to usurp and undermine our sovereignty and our authority as a self-governing state. And any one federal agent that tries to do so, then I will authorize state law enforcement to arrest them. And you have already seen that being talked about up there in Missouri, where the sheriffs have come together in several different counties and said that they would arrest any federal officer that is trying to usurp and undermine and take away anyone's Second Amendment rights. So I think it's time for us to stand up with strong leadership at the state level, because there were free and independent states. That's what it says in the Declaration of Independence. Free and independent states created these United States of America. It wasn't the other way around. So I think we need to make sure people understand it.
Yeah, and if you really look into our Constitution, that's where it's supposed to be. And on top of it, gun-related things are protected by our Constitution on top of it. They're the one thing, so Colorado and Oklahoma and they have legalized what's illegal.
Marijuana. Yeah, they've legalized, and the federal government didn't come down and stop them. So what you see happening is that as long as it agrees with the ideological agenda of the progressive socialist left, and again, Colorado, blue state, California, blue state, but all of a sudden Texas, being a red state, controlled by Republicans, now they got a problem with that. And also, we know that the left does not like our Second Amendment rights. So, everything that we have done here in Texas, we have done by the law. And I'm quite sure that there will be a test case, because that law will go into effect the 1st of September. But people just need to be very circumspect, need to be prudent. Don't need to go out there and wave your nose at the face of the federal government, but just be consistent with the law and allow the Attorney General to protect you. And I tell you, Governor West will definitely make sure that you're protected.
Well, and that's to pass a law just for passing the law's sake, I don't agree with. But if it gets some teeth, and if those federal agents could be arrested if they enforce something like that, and it's equal application of the law. You know, and on top of it, you know, the Second Amendment is items protected by the Constitution. The drugs aren't, you know, but
No, they're not.
yeah, they're not.
And the drugs are detrimental to your health. I mean, we don't see the DEA going into Colorado or California and destroying marijuana farms and arresting people for what they're doing. So if we have just passed a law that's consistent with the Second Amendment, it's not supposed to be infringed upon. And you know, there are people that need to have the noise suppressors because that eliminates the damage to your hearing. So here we're doing something that helps the body, but yet the federal government wants to, align itself, allowing people to have, marijuana in their states, which harms the body. So I'm happy to make that stand against the federal government.
Do you approve or think it's okay with Colorado and them to legalize marijuana?
No, I don't. Look, Stephen, I have never smoked, never drank, never took any drugs in my entire life. So I do not support illegal substances going into the body. I don't even like to have, people that are out there on the streets that have been intoxicated and inebriated, because you end up infringing upon my liberty and my safety when you do that.
Well, and that being said, most of my viewers don't know, but in 1993, my parents were run over and killed by a drunk driver.
Yeah.
And he had been given 4 prior DUIs and shouldn't have been out on the street to begin with.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, drunk driving and things like that. I get it. I 100% do. But I just didn't know whether you were okay with the fact that Colorado and them did that. I mean, their state made that decision for themselves.
Yeah, look, they went through their representatives. They made that decision. It passed there. Of course, again, that's based upon the left's ideological agenda, but it's clearly in violation of federal law, because federal law says that marijuana is an illegal substance. And so I don't think that no one says that a suppressor is an illegal device. You just have to go through hell and high water to be able to get it. And so here in the state of Texas, we have come up with a means by which people in the state of Texas, not someone coming in from Oklahoma, Louisiana, whatever, they should be able to purchase these suppressors. And if Louisiana wants to pass a law like that, or Oklahoma or Georgia or whomever, then they're free to do so. But I don't think that the federal government should be coming down here and trying to usurp and undermine our Second Amendment authority and our sovereignty as a state. Absolutely. I agree 100%.
What about any of the other NFA items, such as, so the ATF is working on banning the pistol braces, saying that it's essentially a short-barreled rifle.
Well, again, I look at the fact that it says in the Constitution that shall not be infringed. And so why, the left is very smart. They try to ban things piecemeal. They try to make ammunition, tax ammunition, so you can't get ammunition. They're going after, like I say, these braces. So what is the purpose of doing that? The purpose of doing that is to infringe upon our Second Amendment rights. And these are not anything that are causing any harm or danger to people. It's just a means by which they try to, once again, push their authority. And so as a governor of the state of Texas, Texas has now been declared that it is a sanctuary for the Second Amendment. So federal agents are not going to come in here and do anything that undermines the Second Amendment right of legal, law-abiding, gun-owning citizens in the state of Texas.
And just by the way, in case people out there don't realize, suppressors in Europe and other countries around the world, if you can get a gun, and which is really hard to jump through all the hoops and everything else, it is considered uncivilized to shoot a gun without a suppressor. It's noise pollution and things, and OSHA has said that suppressors would help a lot with hearing loss and things like that too. It's a issue all the way around also. Now I guess I want to move on to, my favorite subject. And I want you to tell us a little bit about your family, because I know you've got a brand new grandson, and as a grandfather, my grandbabies are it. And I've recently been at an event in up by Dallas where you were, and you're holding your grandson and look like such a proud grandfather and stuff. And I know family means so much to you. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Well, I came from a great mother and father. My dad was born in 1920, my mom in 1931, both of them down south. My dad served as a soldier in World War II, United States Army as a corporal. My mom did a little over 25 years civilian service with the Marine Corps headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. And so I knew that I was going to be either a soldier or a Marine, because my older brother was a Marine. He served in Vietnam and was wounded at Quezon. At the age of 15, my dad challenged me to be the first officer of my family, since he and my older brother were both enlisted. So it's that which really drives me, that sense of family, the traditional nuclear two-parent household. I'm married to an incredible woman. She has an MBA and a PhD. We met. She was a business professor at Kansas State University. Her dad served 24 years service in the United States Army, 2 tours in Vietnam. He's laid to rest in Arlington National Cemetery. We've got 2 great daughters, 28 and 24, Aubrey and Austin, both of them in the medical services field. Aubrey is a physician assistant. Austin right now is finishing up her master's. She works as a caregiver in a senior living facility. She's been accepted to nursing school. She'll start that next year. And, I have 2 son-in-laws now, and I have an incredible young grandson, Jackson Bernard, who is 2.5 months old. And that's what we fight for, Stephen. We fight for our children. We fight for our grandchildren, because the reason why I can be here today in the position that I am in and enjoying all the incredible liberties and opportunities is because I had parents that wanted to make sure that I had it better than what they had. And if you think about, Black parents born in 1920 and 1931 down south, it wasn't easy. But yet they never said a disparaging word about the United States of America. And, even myself, I was born in a Blacks only hospital in 1961, but my dad never raised me to see myself as a victim. He always said this, and it's a quote that I have here engraved in some wood. He said, "Find out what the standard is and exceed it." And that's the American way. And so that's why I want to impart to my daughters and impart to my sons-in-law and also to my grandson.
Well, and I will say that just looking at you and your life, every standard that you've ever been to, whether it's as a soldier or as a man or as a father, you have exceeded that. And I just feel blessed to know you at all. And I guess this kind of, I guess I wanted to wrap up a little bit about the mask and the mandates and stuff, and then we'll just close this out.
Okay.
Because this is what really makes me angry about what has happened in the past is what happened with the mask and the closing down certain businesses and stuff, and right down to one of the things that made me the most angry is when he closed everything down and then allowed the Dallas Cowboys to play in their stadium. That tells you exactly what you need to know. If he truly believed that it was a life or death situation, why did he let Cowboy Stadium have in-person games?
No, there's only one person that can answer that, and that's Governor Abbott. But I will tell you this: no elected official has the enumerated power to decide who or what is essential in the state of Texas or in the United States of America. The most essential thing in Texas and in America is liberty. And Benjamin Franklin said, "Those who would surrender essential liberty for temporary security, in the end, deserve neither liberty nor security." And I just think it was appalling what we saw happen. And now Texas is the #1 state in the United States of America for business bankruptcies, because we destroyed people's lives and livelihoods over a virus. They had a 99.96% recovery rate. That's unconscionable, and that would not happen with the Governor West.